scan away, I'm gonna suck your brain dry. Everything you are is gonna become me. You're gonna be with me, Cameron, no matter what. After all, brothers should be close, don't you think?
What's that look like to you, Rico?
Looks like a bug was in his brain, sir.
They sucked his brains out.
Hello, Michael, and thank you for this conversation. Having worked together on several films, I've had the privilege of watching you step out of yourself and into a character. Do you remember those moments?
What do you mean, do I remember them?
If you remember the movies we've been working together.
I remember Jester.
The last one, yes.
Pascal, I've done 337 films. I've done probably 50 since the last time we worked together.
Oh,
So, please forgive me that.
no worries.
What was the year that we first worked together?
It was, I think, in 2007. I don't remember the name. There were some shooting.
You can't remember the name? You expect me to remember?
Yes, Eva.
Oh, in Moldova.
No, in Moldova, in Bucharest. The second one, it was in Moldova with the kids.
Eva, yes, Eva, yes.
Eva. And then
Yes,
the one with the kids in Moldova.
Yes,
And the Jester
Eva.
was
With
the
that
third
bloody
one.
horse. I don't ride horses, and you gave me a thoroughbred to ride.
I remember that horse, yes.
Yes.
So
Sorry, I'm eating lunch right now. I'm eating a mango.
enjoy it, Michael. Let's say I wanted to create a short video featuring some of your favorite roles that you've played.
How do you know they're my favorite roles? Oh, you're asking me what are my favorites?
I'm asking you, which films would you choose and why?
I don't have a favorite film.
You don't have any?
No.
No?
I have none at all. I mean, it's kind of like, how many cars have you owned in your life? A lot of cars? I remember my first cars, when I was a teenager.
I think more than 10.
I have favorite cars, but they all have a memory for me. The movies are the same.
Yes.
And they're old experiences and stuff like that. I tell you a good way to go. I made the most friends on Total Recall and Starship Trooper, and that was because Paul Verhoeven directed both. He brought the same crew with him. He brought Jos Vacano as the DP, and he brought, you know what I mean? So I got to work with the same group of people twice over, I think it was 6-year period. And each film was like 6 months. So you get to know people very well. So I made a lot of friends, lifelong friends on those two films, but I don't really have favorite films. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I'm more excited about what's happening next. You know what I mean? So
in Starship Troopers, that we have spoke about it, your character has a strong authority. Did you see him as a satire or as someone who truly believes in the system?
What would you do if you were me?
I read that book when I was very, very young. My grandfather was part of a science fiction writing group called The 101. And I actually read things like Dune. I read Dune out of a shoebox. It was sent to my grandfather by the author and stuff. Anyway, I read Starship Trooper because my grandfather told me a lot about the author and how he saw it as a piece of fascist kind of right-wing, literature. And so when Paul Verhoeven, I'd already done Total Recall with Paul. So when Paul said he was going to be doing Starship Trooper, he offered me the part, and I called him up and I said, "Listen, can I talk to you? Can we sit down and have a talk?" And I said to him, knowing Paul had been raised in post-World War II Europe and stuff, I said, why are you doing a right-wing, pro-military, fascist story? Why are you doing this? And he said, "Oh, you question me?" And I said, "Yes, I question you." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you this one time." He says, "I want to create a perfect world where the buildings are perfect, the architecture is perfect, the people are beautiful, the men and women are all equal and beautiful. Everything's perfect, but it's only good for killing bugs," he said.
Yes.
And I said, "Yeah, I'm in." I was aware of it being a satire right off the top, but that doesn't change what I do. That's the author's. The author creates the satire. It's like if you're painting a satirical painting, you don't ask the color blue to be a different color blue. It's
Sure.
what the author. It's what the author does. It's what the painter does with that color blue. He paints it. So no, I just went in and played, a real Jean Razak. I never served in the military, but all my family, my mom's brothers, my father, and my father's brother all served during the Second World War, and I think a lot of that sort of ended up drifting down to the next generation of us kids. There was so I tried to be as honest as I could about the portrayal of a lifer, a person who is a committed military guy, and I think it worked out quite well.
You have played many strong villains. Do you think people sometimes confuse intensity with darkness? What is the difference for you?
That's a pretty broad question, Pascal. I think all people are born out of love. There's two things we're taught when we're born: love and fear. Love is, the thing that keeps us going, and fear is what teaches us how to survive. And villains are made; they're not born. It's like they're created.
Yes.
Characters that I see almost all violence as an attempt, whether they know it or not, to get back to a place of comfort and love. So to play broken people, over the years, of all the films I've played a lot of heavies, a lot of bad, damaged, broken people. I've chosen not to take characters that benefit from their behavior. The bad guys in the so-called heavies I play never gain or are better off for what they do. It always brings about their demise. It always brings about their downfall. And in all my career, I think I took two films for the money, and really took them. They offered me an awful lot of money after Total Recall to do this one. I'm not going to tell you the film, but and I felt the little boy inside me didn't want to go to work after a week. It was
No.
just a piece of, it was a crap. It was like, I just didn't want to do it. I did. I finished the film and I swore I'd never do it again. My way of choosing films is I look at the material first, then who's involved, where it's going to shoot, and then the money. Money's always the last thing. So I get paid a lot of money to play very brutal bad men who die at they fall on their own swords, and I take less money to play kind of fathers that sit on, fathers and grandfathers and teachers and sometimes even ministers and priests.
When do you play a violent or morally complex character? Where do you start? With the mind, the body, or the heart?
Mind, the body, and the heart are all connected. So the writing is there. Look at the way I look at things, and you and I used to get in arguments over this because I didn't agree with you. Is that, and you didn't agree with me, so we got along really well. But I believe that the script is a piece of stained glass. My job is
Yes.
to be the light. My job is to be the light under the stained glass. Bring it to life. and the director tells us which way around the stained glass we're going to go and how he's going to reveal it. Reality or organic reality for an actor has nothing to do with evil, the story, or anything like that. My job is just to make a human being. And to do that, it's basically altering, like, not my normal things. I don't want to get into acting training. I'm well trained. I trained for many years, 24 hours of classes a week to learn how to take something and put a little organic light underneath it, you know? You can't really discuss. I can't really discuss the process of what I do to create something. It's a long, boring conversation. It's like a painter talking about the quality of his brushes, or or how he cleans brushes, or how he sits when he's staring at the easel.
But another question connected with the previous one. If was there ever a role where you felt you had to protect the character from being judged too quickly?
No.
No.
That's not my job. I'm not the storyteller. It's not my job. You hire me to be blue, I'll be blue the best I can. You hire me to be green, I'll be green. You hire me to be, a landscape, I'll do the best I can.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand?
Yes.
That's not my job. The creation is in the hand. I think, for example, when people direct, and I've directed and stuff like that, the director first chooses the material and understands why he's chosen it. Then you cast it correctly. And if you cast it correctly, all you have to say is faster, slower, brighter, softer, louder, simple things. You and I got into a lot of discourse because I was cast to play the character in one of our films, and you didn't like the way I was doing it. And it's like, then you hired the wrong actor.
Yes.
If you want, it's like hiring a 5-foot man and want him to be 6 foot. It doesn't work,
Yasmin, please, let us speak. Yasmin?
Hello.
My daughter. She can't hear you.
How old is she?
9.
Oh, God, love you. That's great.
Thank you.
My 2 girls are 27 and 53, 54 this year. Both in the film industry. The youngest one's just done her 3rd short film. And she's good. We might all end up working for her someday, hopefully.
Yes. Coming back at your performances, they feel controlled, but also explosive. What helps you stay controlled and what allows you to explode?
Again, Pascal, that's not me. That's the character as written. That's the author. That's the director.
So, yes, I know.
I don't make those choices. An actor, as I understand it, is an instrument. It's like a keyboard, a piano, and if you choose the right instrument to play it, you never pick a tuba to play a minuet, or a violin to be a marching band. You know what I mean? How I'm played or what music I'm told to play is not my choice. That's the director's choice. I don't choose to explode. I don't choose. It usually says in the script, the character, ruminates and has an organic reaction and gets upset. Then we talk to the director. What kind of upset do you want? Do you want dangerous? Do you want it obsessive? Do you want it, and how much blue do you want?
Do you remember Scanners?
Yes.
The energy in that movie is very intense. Do you feel at the time that the film would become a cult classic?
No, absolutely not. You're looking back in retrospect. That was me at 29 years old. That was Jesus. almost. That was 1979 when we started shooting that. 1980. 1979. We shot it over 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah,
That
well,
long.
we shot that long because they shot one film, and David Cronenberg. This is the way I understand it. David did not like the ending, did not like the way it looked and stuff, and he sent this. He had a cut, and he sent it off to New York to. Oh my God, my brain just went on me. To Dick, special effects makeup artist. My brain just went on me. Sent it down to him in New York and said, "Can you do a different?" Now he was working on Altered States at the time, and he said, "Yes, I've got a break right now. I can do it." And those bladders we used and everything were all created by. Oh God, why can I not think of his name right now? This is what you get when you're 76 years old. You get little mind. But and he wrote a whole new ending, and we shot that. When, for example, in Scanners, when my brother hits me with that statue, and I go down on the floor at the end of the film, when we're in the office, he hits me with a statue. It's December 22nd. When I get up off the floor and touch my head and say, "Brother should be close, don't you think?" That's actually May 17th. So that was a brand new ending and stuff like that. And then we went back and did more shoots in Toronto. There's some scenes in the subway and some other things where I meet this other actor and stuff like that. And I thank God David can do that. And I don't think too many authors can do that, or filmmakers, to be able to change something on the run like that. You know, it's. What do I remember about that? I remember at one point, I was hired. David was constantly rewriting the script while we were doing it, and my character kept evolving. It wasn't a big character at the beginning. Then he started taking more and more, building more of the character. So I would sometimes get material the day before I shot it, the night before we shot it and stuff. And about 2 weeks into it, David said to me, "You're doing really well. What are you using?" And I said, "I found a metaphor that works for me, kind of, is I see these characters that you've created as being kind of like Che Guevara, the misunderstood new social dilemma or whatever. And I see my character kind of like being politically. I don't want to be killed. I don't want to be subjected to society's, just because there's a line in the film that got cut, as I remember it, because it was in Europe, and my character said, "Just because you made me doesn't give you the right to kill me."
So
and
this
that
one,
caught on.
This one was cut off.
Well, it was in Europe, and in those days, films were abroad. You had like 40 prints, and they showed in Europe, and this is before it came to the United States. And back to Europe, back to North America, and it caused riots because the skinheads were using that line outside the theater and marching and saying, "Just because you made us, you don't get to kill us," and stuff like that. It was a social movement in those days rather than a stylistic statement, and which is a very shallow way of talking about it. But no, so that was actually, I think, removed completely from the film before it got to North America. That's the way I remember it. But no, I just saw him as a political character. I saw Revik as being, fighting to support that line that just because they made us doesn't give them the right to kill us. And David's a brilliant filmmaker. David Cronenberg is a very, very smart filmmaker, like Paul Verhoeven and a couple of others. They control every aspect of what they're doing. They get a concept, they go through a medium and into the audience's mind with the least amount of distortion. And David's career, that was what's wonderful about Scanners, is it gave David worldwide recognition. I actually think things like The Brood, which he made before that with Oliver Reed, and was quite disturbing, and But what do I remember about that? I was a Canadian actor, young actor. It was I think it was somewhere around my 11th or 19th job.
19 job, the 19 job.
In 1979, I did a lot of work behind camera. In Canada, when there was very, very small industry in the late 60s, early 70s, and I would do work in front of the cameras and behind camera. I would do grip work. I would do electric. And when I got a chance, David wanted to do that. I auditioned for that character. It was a very small part in the film originally, as I understood it. I was very grateful to get it. Very grateful to get it. It kind of opened up doors internationally, and people saw me more on an international level after that. So,
Is there a role that meant the most to you personally? Not because it was famous, but because it touched you deeply.
It's a Harlequin romance, I think it's Harlequin. Is it Harlequin, or they make Christmas cards and stuff like that? They have their own network and stuff. They sent a script. It's a family-orientated network. Sent a script about 4 years ago. It was about a grandfather and running a pumpkin. It was called Pumpkin Everything, and it was Hallmark. That's the name of the company, Hallmark. And they make their own. They have their own network. They have their own films and stuff. And they're family oriented. And they sent me the script, and it was about a grandfather who runs a store called Pumpkin Everything, where it's all Thanksgiving and harvest stuff. And I read it, and I thought, I don't know what to do with this. I wouldn't know how to play this, And my wife reads everything that I read, and I said, okay. So she read it, and she said, oh, want to go to dinner? And I said, sure. So we went out to a restaurant. She waited until she got me into a restaurant. She said, so that script, Pumpkin Everything. I said, yeah. She says, what are you afraid of? And I went, she waited until we're in public to ask me this question, I went, what do you mean? I said, all right, honestly, I don't know what to do or how to play this character. He has no weapons. He's affable. He's vulnerable. He's at the end of his life, sort of thing, and he's desperately trying to control everything and doesn't physically really understand what's going on with his life physically. And she says, so you're afraid to do it because you don't know. She says, maybe you should reread that and reconsider it. So we went home and I reread it and I went, oh, wow, And then the offer came in the next morning, and she was in the office, and she looked at my screen, and the money offer came in, and she turned to me, she said, you're doing it. But that one became special because I really didn't. I went into it not having a complete idea of how to create this character. He had no weapons. He had no way of defending himself. It's quite a wonderful character, and it went well. I made a lot of friends. I did some things in that I don't usually get a chance to do emotionally and stuff. And when it aired, my sister saw it. My sister Wendy, and my dad's been dead for 20 some odd years at this point, And my sister saw it. She's up in Canada. She called me and she goes, "Hey, Mike, I saw that pumpkin film." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "You were doing Dad." And she whispered, and we're on the phone like two kids. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I was doing Dad. How did I do?" She goes, "Oh, Dad, it was Dad." And I did. I played my dad in that. And that to me, that was special. That was special in the last few years. Every film's special. People say, "What's your favorite film?" I say, "The next one."
Yes, it makes sense. Because we spoke about Richter from Total Recall. What do you remember most? The physical work, the ideas of the story, or the impact the film later had?
What I remember in Total Recall was Arnold. Arnold's I think we became very, very good acquaintances. I learned a lot, believe it or not, from him, in the sense that the way I was trained and stuff like that is everything's in here and stuff like that, emotionally. And I was trained in what people call the method and stuff, which gets a bad rap. But and we were looking at daily. He would run dailies for himself, and he asked me. He said, "Mikey, why don't you come have a look at this stuff?" And I went, and I was looking at it, and I didn't like the way my stuff looked. You know, physically, all the physical stuff, the running and all this stuff, and we were come out, and I was kind of staring at the ground. He said, "What's going on?" I said, "I don't like the way my stuff looks." So he says, "What, do you need camera?" No, I said, "No. I said, yours looks so strong, your physicality and stuff. I don't know what and he didn't trust that. I mean, it was we worked on that film for 6 months. This was about 3 weeks into the film, you know, and he said, are you making fun of me? And I went, "No, I'm not." He says, you're making, don't set me up to be an asshole here. I said, no, it's not about it. He says, "Well, let's go have a look." And then on our next day off, he set up a whole bunch of the physical scenes, and he pointed out that when I was running and stuff like that, that you got to remember, he says, so much of the character is in the physicality of him. You have, the strength of the character. Yes, that's realistic and that's natural what you're doing there, but you're running very loose. You're running very, he said, try and tighten that up. Try and make it look as large as the emotion behind the situation. Because, and we started talking, and he was right. He was absolutely right. It improved. Also, my knees were shot. I've got 2 false knees now, but that was the last film I did before my left knee was replaced. And so many times on the film, I'd be running up some stairs or running down some stairs, and as I got off camera, I would collapse and fall. It was just a mess. But no, I learned that because of this film, I think I'd gotten kind of not lazy. I forgot that there's a responsibility to have a sculpted structure to the character. You do it on stage. You have it, and you're aware of all your physicality on stage when you're in a live theater. In camera, because we do so much in here and film, that I'd forgotten about the responsibility of having that character manifest physically too, not just emotionally, and let that affect you. And it really helped. I think my work improved a lot after that. I find that I learn something on just about every project I do.
Did you fight Arnold? I speak
Yes,
arm wrestling.
No. That's falsehoods. That is a story from way back. There's a thing in the press about me being a champion arm wrestler and all this. That's bullshit.
No.
The story. No, it's not true at all. The story is that when I was a kid, I come from a very large family. I have 97 first cousins. My mom had 18 brothers and sisters. They all had at least 5 children. Yeah, my dad had 1 brother who was killed during the war, and we all lived in the same neighborhood. And I had a job cleaning factories at night. I'd sweep and mop and stuff like that when I was very young. I did that when I was 11 and 12 until I was 19. And my Uncle Joe, who lived 4 doors down, his oldest son, Brian, my Uncle Joe was a champion boxer from the Second World War. And he prided his son and him on their physicality. And they were doing some stuff while we were all at a dinner one night. And he said, "Brian, why don't you and Mike arm wrestle?" And we did it. And everyone was shocked because I just went bang and put Brian down. And he said, "Well, let's do it again," and bang. And I thought, oh. And what had happened, so Brian, a month and a half later, 2 months later, comes up and says, "Let's do it again." And Brian's dad stood over him and he put my arm down. That's where that story comes from. Was from me in the factory and mopping floors every night. I was never a champion arm wrestler. I beat my cousin once, but some interview didn't hear it properly. So,
And so, what about fighting with Arnold?
Fighting with Arnold, that was all choreographed. Very well done. Great choreographers. Arnold and I did that. I had actually got hurt on Total Recall. There's a scene where I'm going to shoot Arnold and Rachel Tikkanen as they're climbing through the superstructure. And the guy that's working with me comes running up behind me and says, no, don't. And as I turned, the actor below camera hit me right here in the sternum with the barrel of his gun and cracked my sternum and broke 2 ribs.
Wow.
And
Awful.
so that scene when you see me go and step off camera, that was the last thing I did for the next 2.5 weeks, because I had to go back to Los Angeles and get patched up and put in the hospital and stuff. Look, it's snowing here.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah. And so spring is not here yet. But no, so my first thing back after that accident was the elevator signs. Like, and so I ended up wearing a flak jacket underneath my shirt because my ribs were still healing. And there was only one place in the whole fight where Arnold actually tapped me slightly. That was all choreographed. He's very, very good at that, and so am I. I've spent my whole career doing nothing but fight scenes and stuff. But you know, no, it was great. And he knew how to take a punch. I knew how to take a punch. We knew how to show. You know, it's like really, really well choreographed dance, and it works.
Great. Before acting, you were interested in writing. Do you still write, even privately?
Pascal, I was a writer. I had my first play produced when I was 13 years old. And I won a Canada-wide writing contest when I was 15. I started off as a writer. I've joined the National Film Board workshop in Toronto as a writer and theater writer, playwright. Took acting lessons to help my writing and came out as a writer, actor, director. I do all those things. I still write. I've got about 14 scripts. What I do a lot of is producers I've worked with will send me first-time writer directors, and they'll say, can you make sense of this? Because we think there's something here. And they'll pay me money to shepherd a writer or director through the project and stuff. Or sometimes they'll send me something that they say, look, we've got money, this thing boards out at 32 days. And the script, we got money for 32 days and it boards out at 46 days. Can you cut 20 pages out of it, 20 days out of it? And usually I can sit down with the writer and show them how to roll one character into another, make it stronger, bring your locations down and stuff like that. Yes, I write all the time. I'm actually going to be directing something this fall that I wrote. And I've got a whole bunch of things I've been sitting on a shelf, putting it off. And my wife finally said, when do you think you're going to get around to doing this? You're 76 years old. You think anyone's going to finance you when you're 80? And she was right. So I took one of the films down. It's called Motel. And we're going to shoot it this November.
Great.
I'll be directing it and stuff. So.
What kind of stories are missing from cinema today? And what stories would you like to see again?
What stories are missing?
Yes.
I don't know if they're missing. I think the problem we have right now is that we're going through one more time, because every time there's a new invention that enters our, first it was videos, and then it was internet, and then it was CDs, and then it was all this stuff. The industry always has to sort of expand and recontort itself to accept it. I think the problem right now is that we're not getting stories at all. We're getting samplings. They're events. They're kind of like extended videos, a lot of stuff. It's, my idea, my understanding of human nature is that from the beginning of time, when the sun goes down and it's dark, all the way back to prehistoric tribal times, everyone would gather around the fire and an elder would get up and tell a story. And he would tell a legend. And it was for the purpose of teaching or conveying something to the group that was listening. So it was a way of passing on legend, information. And whether it's going into a dark room and looking through a window in a theater, or on, or the curtains open up, we're sitting in the dark and viewing a story, like a campfire story, and we need more of that. We need a lot more of that, because you get if you tell a story correctly and organically, where people can identify with it, people learn, we expand, we grow. It's part of the collective consciousness to tell good stories.
Yes.
Not to just sort of throw candy at us and placate people to satisfy them for 20 minutes. It's important. It's really important. It's an educational thing. It's a cultural educational thing, and it can get distorted. But it's important. Storytelling's important. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere. It's just going to have to find its legs again in a different way.
Away from the camera, what gives you peace? Silence, nature, family, music?
All of those things. I don't know how to answer that.
Are you doing something? Are you doing something like a hobby, except writing?
Right? Like, Pascal, the film industry is not a fucking hobby. It's a complete lifestyle. It's the circus.
Yes, but away from the cinema.
There is no away from the circus. There's no away from it. You're in the circus. I met Donald Pleasant when I was very young in a movie, and he said, "You're very good," and he says, "You're going to be in it for a long time." He just said, "Just remember," he said, "you can never get the smell of elephant shit off your feet." And it's the truth. We're in the circus. It's not my day job. The circus isn't your day job. It's your life. That's what I do.
If someone only knew you from your villain's roles, what would surprise them most if they met you in real life?
That I play the violin and I'm a golfer.
Great. And can we see you playing the violin at the end? What do you think?
No.
No.
I broke these three fingers.
Oh.
A while back, and I can't get into third position. So, but no, 76. I'm lucky I can still use my bloody fingers. So, but no, I played violin for 14 years. I was front seat, second fiddle in the National Youth Orchestra in Canada, the National Collegiate. Anyway, but I gave it up when I was younger because I broke my fingers playing football and stuff. But no, what do they know about me? I'm just me. I'm not very political. I like bringing things to life. That's what I like about what we do. I enjoy when a well-structured story with organically correct characters and stuff are in it. I love watching it. It's like watching something grow. It's like watching a garden grow. It's especially when you get great people around you. It's a lot of fun.
If you could speak to your younger self before your first big role, what would you tell him about fear and ambition?
I have no idea.
Yes, this was a question that I have two characters in my script that they are passing through this situation, and I was wanting to know your angle.
Well, I think if I was to say anything to my younger self, I would just say, follow your heart. I was raised in a working class family, but I was given the dignity of making my own choices. I was given books at a very early age. We didn't have television until I was well into my teenage years. Spent all my life, early life reading and stuff. And my father, God love him, he, wasn't well educated, but he took a job cleaning. At night, he cleaned this printing company in Canada, and they allowed him to keep the first run test prints, and he brought all the books home. And there was books everywhere. We were allowed to read anything. We could have our lights on at night as long as we were reading. And I read a lot, and I don't know. I've always felt like there was something I needed to do. It was something I was put here to do. That everyone has a certain amount of dignity in their life. If they don't, it's a crime when it's taken away from them. And I've been able to hold on to mine, and I'm not sure what it is, but I'm still trying to bring things to life. That bring that garden to life. I enjoy what I do.
Beautiful. Today, the world of politics often feels darker than some of the villains you've played. If you ever choose to play a political villain inspired by someone from today's world, only if you wish, is there a specific person who comes to mind?
No. I would not choose that. I'm an actor. I don't want that responsibility. I've played political characters. I've played Lenin. I've played Gore. I've played different characters over the years and stuff like that. But those are that's another author's, another storyteller's version. My job is just to bring that character that he created to life. Politics, I stay out of. I'm a human being. I'm affected by those things. But I think education is more important. Much more important, So if I can educate, I don't want to influence. I would never want the responsibility of affecting anyone's choice when it comes to politics. Who am I? I'm just one voice. I know it. I try and make organic, nurturing choices for myself and the family around me. I know I played a lot of violent characters, but I believe in the aspect of teach peace.
What would you like people to remember most about you?
I was worth the price of admission. Would you pay money to go see something? It was worth it if I was in it. My performance is worth the money.
Now we are at the end. And Michael, thank you for this conversation. It truly means a lot to me.
Okay, Pascal.
That was Michael Ironside, an actor of strength, depth, and rare honesty. Beyond the villains
rare honesty? Really?
Rare honesty, yes.
Who do you talk to?
Yes, because as much as I knew you, I can have this opinion.
Oh, you definitely had an opinion about me.
Yes.
Pascala, this is a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to add that beyond the villains and the power on screen, there is a man who never stopped searching, and maybe that is the real story.
True. That is true.
Thank you for watching. Thank you very much, Michael.